welcome back into North of the End Zone, Episode 3. As always, I'm your host, Brady Locke, joined alongside Owen Reid, and this week we have another pretty action-packed episode for you all. There were some pretty wild games in the CFL, 2 overtime games, another thriller on Friday nights, a Saturday doubleheader. You couldn't really get much better than that. But we're going to be breaking it all down, and in particular, we're actually going to be taking a look at 2 teams that are 0-2 to start the season, the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders. There's going to be a pretty big question to be had there about those 2 going into their matchup this week, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. First, Owen, I'm going to check in with you. How has your week been? Did you catch any of these games, and what really stuck out to you?
Ooh, I'm doing fantastic, man. Always fun when I get to see my guy in a Raptors sweater, especially after the draft. Feeling pretty good. But man, it was a good week of games. Like I said, I'm still kind of new to the CFL, but man, I absolutely love the Stampeders game. They put on a show. I wasn't expecting it at all. I'm very happy we get to dive into 0-2 teams because as a Bears fan, my bread and butter is analyzing how bad we are and seeing how they could do better. So I am really excited for that. But nonetheless, we got a lot to talk about today. Canada's also playing. Shout out football right up there, other football. And then, yeah, we get to break down Nathan Rourke, who obviously Giono's high on. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have him here to, glaze the absolute crap out of him, but we will find a way, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, starting it this week, I'll actually start it with the Argos Red Blacks game. I know we're gonna start there with your Toronto Argos. They got their first win of the season
Come on.
against, Ottawa Red Blacks. Have it as you will, but still a very impressive performance. Chad Kelly with the triple four, 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, and 400 yards. What did you see from the Argos there in that game? And was Chad Kelly really impressive to you?
He looked fantastic. If you remember right, I kind of was doubtful at first. I thought the injury-prone guy, we'd have Harbuckle in here by game 2. I thought maybe we'd have to give him a second to readjust to things, maybe get used to Miller. But at the end of the day, man, it looked like Jameis Winston out there. That's the best comparison I could give
Oh
you.
man.
The big 4-4-4 is just he was throwing a lot, which I love. Get the ball in his hands. His pocket presence looked great. O-line, I thought could have been better. But at the end of the day, man, 400 yards and a decisive win by 22, I think, 44-22, something like that,
Yeah.
is dominant. And man, Ottawa, which we were going to talk about this week, we'll move it to some other time. They got some work to do with Drew Brown out now. I don't know.
Yeah.
What,
Well,
what
that's
were you
very
thinking
interesting.
though? Any takes on the Argos game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you covered the Argos pretty well there. In terms of the Red Blacks, I didn't see anything I liked from Jake Mayer, and it felt like all of his 2 interceptions there were both just, throws that weren't necessary. I
Yeah.
think he's, making pretty bad game decisions. And for me, after that game, and especially on Monday when we recorded the National Rundown, I was like, okay, I think this is finally the time where we can, move on from him, maybe give somebody else a shot, Drew Brown, and then we find out that he's now been traded. So for me, I don't know if Dinwiddie's, seeing something there where he's like, okay, now I'm finally for sure on this guy. He's going to be my starter going forward, or whatever it may be. But now you're kind of, running pretty low on quarterback options, and you're almost stuck keeping him in there for a little bit longer. And to be honest, I kind of figured they would, especially with their next 2-game stretch is kind of a bit tough. I think they might just, let him face the harm that's coming his way. But I thought maybe in a couple weeks they'll make a change. Who knows if they sign somebody, make a trade, but I think there needs to be a quarterback change. But who knows? Again, it's still 2 weeks in, but I wasn't giving him much of a leash to begin with, so we'll definitely have to see. But again, moving forward from that game, we'll keep it pretty quick here. Going into the let's go to the Alouettes Elks. I think that was an interesting game, and I know if Gianno was here, he'd have quite an opinion on those Elks. But they got the win over the Alouettes, 32-29 in overtime, in a pretty rainy game. I'll state that, but
Really?
there was a lot of turnovers here, and especially a lot of turnovers by the Alouettes down the stretch. That for me felt pretty costly. There was a muffed punt. There was a pretty big fumble. There was a couple things that they just, if they cleaned up, I think they would have had this game. But with that being said, Rankin was a beast in this game for the Elks. He was just another unstoppable force week in and week out. But for me, Cody Fajardo was kind of one of those standout guys where the stats didn't really show exactly the impact he had on this game.
Really?
He only did throw for one touchdown, I believe, had an interception, but he made a really clutch play in overtime to win the game, as well as a pretty huge block on one of the Rankin touchdown runs that, shows a little something for me because, as a guy analyzing quarterbacks, I'd like to see you, show that you have, this grit and this strength for your team, that you go out, you want to make plays, even if it's without the football in your hands. And he makes a big block, which you don't see a lot of quarterbacks do most of the time, right? So for me, Fajardo was a standout, Rankin was a standout, and I think this Alouettes team could have won this game, but, the Elks, I'll give it to them. They took it. What did you think of this game?
Man, you covered every base on that one. I'm not gonna lie, I only caught the highlights on the Elks game. I heard the conditions were bad. You're right, absolutely clutch play at the end there. All I can say is I didn't notice much of Fajardo. I thought he was great. I thought
Yeah.
Davis Alexander, he played all right, I guess. I mean, he's gonna come back a lot better. He's the leader of this team, but like you said, I didn't even notice the block. I love a leader that just goes in, gets their hands dirty, shows that they're passionate about the team, makes the extra effort, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been just so easy to dog it on the way back, maybe just watch the run, maybe like cut off players, but no, this guy got right in there for the block.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, but
Yeah, very interesting. And now the Elks are moving to 2-0, I believe, and the Alouettes will be 2-1, tied with the Ticats now. As we kind of transition into their game this week with the BC Lions, where they did take the win in a pretty big game. Bo Levi, he had more touchdowns than incompletions, which is
that's nuts.
something very, very interesting to be said about efficiency of quarterbacks, which is something I love to see, right? I'm a big guy. If you don't have the pass, don't force it, whatnot, be efficient. So this was as efficient as it gets as being a quarterback. Although he only had, I believe, 200 and some odd yards, but he only needed to throw 15 completions, right? And he had 5 touchdown passes. So he was incredible. And although I actually did mention this on the National Rundown, I'll let you take it away here while I find this stat. But what did you think of this game?
First of all, disaster from BC.
Yeah.
Their wide receiver unit, we'll talk about them in a second. Man, they are hurting. It's got to be rough when you see the weapons you're looking at around BC right now. What's where I'm trying to picture? Yes, they're the team with the injury problem. Wide receiver wise, they couldn't get anything going. I mean, their first drives that led to scoring were all field goals. The score was, even though it's 27-41 at the end, it was 41-12. And at the end of the day, you're just looking at this team who gave up huge chunk yardage plays, especially early on. And you're like, okay, Nathan Rourke, he's a great player. He is MOP. He just can't do it all by himself. And that's why the BC Lions are 0-2. Because, frankly, the wide receiver core from Hamilton just outclassed the secondary. There was just a lot of miscommunication on the back end of the BC Lions.
Yeah.
And really, Bo Levi Mitchell, he didn't have to do much, but he just looked really accurate across the middle. And he looked really good on the deep ball. And for someone who is almost 10 years older, we outclassed him, which I think is fantastic, But, starting it off, what were your impressions on Rourke if you caught the game?
Yeah, so for me, Rourke, it felt like, he couldn't really get any big momentum going. I don't know. I couldn't really tell you because I didn't see it too much live, but if it was a combination of, the line, if it was a combination of the receivers not getting open, but, he only had, one touchdown throw and an interception, so you kind of cancel those two out, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, there wasn't a lot to love here. I just felt like that Hamilton secondary was, taking care of business for sure. And, like you mentioned with the receiving core, the injuries are starting to pile up. Like Nick Senecal being your top receiver isn't something that you were probably really expecting, right? 120 yards. It was his first game of the season. So
Mhm.
there's something interesting to be said there. Maybe that's a guy you can look at in the future. I'm not sure. But again, McInnes, 81 yards, and then you had, just a few other guys in there. But, your main guys, like, what is it, Hatcher, Katoy, those guys all out with injuries. So it's
Brutal.
interesting on the BC front. I definitely don't want to overreact. We're going to get into it shortly. But I think the last thing I want to say on this game at the moment was, Bo Levi Mitchell, and this kind of goes at the BC secondary, right? His stat line again: 285 yards, 15 completions. He averaged 15 yards a throw. He was burning the secondary on some deep balls, right? Keep in mind, Kenny Lawler's longest catch, 49 yards. Keandre Smith's longest catch, 56 yards. Myron Mitchell's longest catch, 56 yards. That right there is 150 yards of his 285 passing.
That's nuts.
So that to me shows that, you got beat at least 3 times for big chunk plays, and that's something you can't have, right? You cannot have those 3 big 50 balls in one game. It's not going to win you games. It's not going to keep you competitive, and you've now given up 72 points in your first 2 games. Not ideal. Not ideal if you're BC, but I'll tone it down a bit on BC for now. We'll head over to that Rough Riders Stamps game. That was
And
another big one. Stamps lose a close one in overtime, 40-37. To me, again, this goes back to their first game. They're starting off so slow, and they can't get back into it when it's too little, too late.
yeah.
Vernon Adams, he only had 1 touchdown pass, and that was on his final drive in the fourth quarter to tie this one
What a
up. So
throw. What a throw.
it was amazing, yes,
Yeah.
but it's just tough to see, right? Because, I think they have so much potential with this team and they're playing a lot better than maybe people initially expected. But if you can do this a little bit earlier in the game, get your footing going a little bit sooner, you can win these games, and you've shown you can compete against these good teams. So Calgary's an interesting one. I don't think their 0-2 record should be 0-2, but again, with that being said, I think it's their own fault that it again is 0-2 and that they've had these chances to change that.
Yeah.
But I'll send it to you. What do you think of that game?
Like I'm saying, it was definitely match of the week. I love how you put in the end. They're kind of just kicking, they're just making problems for themselves at the end
Yeah,
of the day. They really, really, really got bailed out at the end of the first half. If you saw the punt return, that was like
yeah,
carried for 100 something yards.
yeah,
Insane run. He was gassed at the end of it. I love to see it. But just to catch up people who are listening right here, basically, I don't know the guy's name. It was on an extra point kick. It's hit wide. He takes it
Tyreek
back.
McAllister.
That's it. Thank you, McAllister. He takes it back for, oh, he goes the whole length of the field for a touchdown to make it a closer game heading into half. That did a lot to kind of light the spark for
Yeah,
the team, right? Like you
absolutely.
said, they've been really slow, really early. And I think that boils down to just Vernon Adams being in his second year of the system, really. Like they have a big timing based offense, which to be fair, he's got to adapt to a lot better, but honestly, I completely agree with you. They should be better than they are. They are really, 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 really good down the stretch. They've lost both their games within 3, and they try so hard at that fourth quarter. It's like, why aren't you playing well for the
Yeah,
rest of the time?
yeah,
Because man, Vernon Adams, he's got the it factor when it comes to the fourth. His stats don't show it, but
yeah, exactly.
when the fourth hit, man, this guy gets out of the pocket. He has 254 yards passing, I think. Rushing, he had like 60 yards, which is still good, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He just looks like a stud. They're 37-40, but once they kind of get these pieces together, I think they could be a really good team.
Yeah, I think, Calgary, they just need to find their footing. I think
Yep.
that's probably the biggest thing that I can say right now. But Saskatchewan, I'll give them credit where credit's due. I know they played a really good game again. Trevor Harris, like he does, 3 touchdowns, 349 yards. Schaefer Baker, I think, was a big piece here this
Phenomenal.
game. He had some unbelievable catches. But again, looking at it, Schaefer Baker, Emulus, Keyshawn Johnson, I don't think there's a better big three in this league right now. So
No.
I think Saskatchewan is well on their way to doing what they set out to do last season, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
we will definitely have to see, but I think Saskatchewan's looking good. Again, maybe you don't want to give up that many points in a game. That might be being a little bit critical, but again, it also felt like a game where you could have probably shut the door a little bit sooner, and you
Yeah.
probably shouldn't have let Calgary come back in this game. But is that more on Saskatchewan's part? Is that more on Calgary's part? Who knows? But again, Saskatchewan is looking good. I'll leave it at that. And I think we'll definitely get into them more in a few weeks. But for now, we spent a lot of time on them last week. We know what they're going to have this season. Let's take a look at the BC Lions and the Stamps a little bit closer, compare them a little bit ahead of their big matchup this coming week, where one of them is going to move to 0-3, one of them is going to be at 1-2, and to me, that is a really big difference in your standings, because if you are 0-3 early in the season, you're falling behind. You're getting close to a pretty big mountain to climb if it gets worse than that. So I'm gonna start it with you. We're gonna talk cute quarterbacks first, Rourke and Vernon Adams. What do you think is the key to each of these quarterbacks getting their team this first win this week?
Oof. Honestly, at the end of the day, wait, remind me real quick, who's at home in this matchup?
Well, this one is going to be actually in Kelowna, BC, because of the
Uh,
World Cup
right.
in the BC place. But yeah, so technically it's a home game for BC. It'll still
Okay.
be in BC, but it'll just be in Kelowna instead of Vancouver. So
Interesting.
technically still a home game for BC.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, I have to say the key. I love the question, by the way. The key to success when I think about Vernon Adams, right? Like I was talking about, it's the timing offense. He's in a system for the second year. He looks a lot more composed to just stay in the pocket, which I love for him. Because like Justin Fields and every single rookie quarterback you've ever seen in your life, or at least a quarterback who's in a new system, the first thing they want to do, at least last year, is run. When the pocket collapses, they're running immediately. He did that a lot last year, right?
Yeah.
When you look at him in yesterday's game, or not yesterday, his last game where he lost 37-40, he stayed in the pocket, he trusted the system, and even though it was slow at first and they tried to establish a big run game, I think he just showed that he's clicking more with his offensive coordinator, which I think is exactly the key to winning this game. Because BC, if you're facing a terrible secondary, and I'll call them terrible, because they are exactly the Cincinnati Bengals, zero defense. I'm telling you, man,
Oh, I love that comparison.
a slow secondary. I think the key is just timing, and if Vernon can hit his guys, I think it could be comfortable for his Stampeders.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking about Nathan Rourke, man, he's. I'm going to actually throw it to you. Do you think he's the unluckiest man in the CFL right now?
I think he very well could be, right? I think
Yeah.
he has all the tools, but to me it doesn't feel like it's always his fault. Like I feel
Yeah.
like it's what's going on around him. And again, like you say, I think it's really unlucky, and that's why I think this team is going to probably turn around, because that's what good teams do. They find ways to win games when they probably shouldn't, and they find ways to bounce back when everything's against them. So I think Rourke is gonna find his footing, and I definitely don't think it's his fault right now. I think it's unlucky with the injuries on the wide receivers, and I think it's probably maybe partially just the O-line trying to figure things out, trying to
Yeah.
settle in. So I think this game would be pretty big for them to find their footing, and I think it'll be a chance for them to get back. So I'll leave my prediction till the end, but I think BC does find a way to prove themselves in this game and say, hey, we're still contenders. This West is still up for grabs, and don't count us out, right? But
Yeah.
I liked what you said with Vernon Adams there. I think he definitely needs to trust the pocket, and there's been times when he's held onto the ball too long, but again, he just needs to get more comfortable in the system, and I think that could be partially why they're starting off slower. It's just maybe at the start of games, he's just like finding his way in, he's settling in, figuring out the timing, figuring out the D-line, what's going on around him, but he's going to have to find a way to settle in quicker for sure. But again, he has all the tools, man. I think this guy has the potential to be easily a top 2 quarterback in this league with everything going right for him, right? So we will have to see there. We'll move on to receivers because this one's interesting to me. I think at full strength, BC definitely has the bigger advantage in the receiver.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I think full strength, they're deeper, right? But
full strength. Okay.
Yeah, full strength, not current. I think right now, Calgary has some pieces for sure, but I don't think they're pieces at their full at their like full strength, that they're like their best are better than BC's. But I'll send it to you. What do you think of the receivers?
Cool. Yeah, my bad for the large reaction there. I'm kind of shocked. At full strength, no question, it's BC.
Okay, yeah.
Right now, if we're talking current football, man, the Stampeders, they have the experience, and that's really what kind of wins you games at the receiving core. If I'm looking at the BC Lions receivers right now, I mean, massive hole. Like you said, their guy who plays first ever game scored their most receiving yards. That's all you have to say. Javon, he's out. Barry Hill III, out. Keon Hatcher Sr., out. Kieran Poisson, out. Justin McInnes. He ran into an advertisement board in the Hamilton game, in case you didn't see it. He may be questionable. And then you're looking down, that's just their backup got injured. And so they're just in a hole right now where Rourke has got to somehow find a way to make openings for them through almost precise kind of timed throws across the middle, which they've been really good. They've been okay doing with the injuries so far. It's just, man, if it's the receiving core of Eric Brooks, Brissett, and Jalen Philpott and Tevin Jones, who are all coming off 800-yard seasons, like no question that takes the cake for me. They're not like exciting. I'd say Philpott's exciting. He's a great guy to watch.
Yeah.
He's really good on the wide out. His spatial awareness in the slot is a lot, right? He's a really good player. But I don't know. I think that Brissett's going to have a fun game. I think he's just warming up with the Calgary system. He kind of got off the mark, 55 yards. But, yeah, what do you think of this kind of Stampeders receiving team?
Yeah, I think they're still probably trying to figure out, who's that number 2, who's that number 3 guy. Like, I think Philpott's probably the one, right? And then you got to look at, is it Brooks, is it Brissett, who's going to step up and really take control of that 2 spot. But I think there's a lot to, maybe like about this receiving core. I think there's definitely some bright spots with them, right? I think they're going to find their footing. They're going to figure it out, but it's ultimately up to VA and how he, gets them to their spot, builds their confidence with them, and they just click, right? So it's probably going to be the wide receiver 2 is going to be whoever he really makes him into be, right? Whoever he really takes control of and is like, hey, we're gelling well, we're playing well, we're finding each other. So
Agreed.
I think that's probably it for me, right? But
one thing I want to mention, right, is heading into this game, man, the Stampeders, this may be a good transition to the next aspect of things, but the Stampeders rushing at the beginning has been horrendous.
Yeah,
horrendous.
That's where I was going.
They can't get fired up early. They run it so often too, and it leads to like 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 8. And then they're just stuck with Vernon Adams trying to dig himself out of a hole. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the rushing game is probably the 2 of the weakest parts of these offenses. I think I'm not in love with either Dedrick Mills or James Butler, to be honest. I don't know. Like last year, they had pretty solid seasons. Both had 11 touchdowns. Both had at least 1,200 yards. So there was a lot to look at there. But again, this season, you're gonna need that run game to step up. This is something I harp on. You have to establish the run, to establish the pass. You have to, and vice versa, right? You have to have all things going if you want to be a good team, because teams find a way to stop one, and then they force you to play the other. And if you can't play the other, then you're toast. So, anyways, to get to my point here, Dedrick Mills. Yeah, like you said, I think early downs he needs to find a way to get them chunk yardage, right? And it's probably going to be the same thing with James Butler. And for James Butler, I think there's even more pressure because, especially with these receivers out, he's going to have to take a lot more of a load and kind of step into a role that maybe he's not used to and kind of, be that James or Justin Rankin type where he can just take over games. Like, you almost need him to do something like that to spark this BC team, which is very hard to do, right? But for me, I'm not loving either of them, and I think I would probably rank these about even in the rushing, category. I would say I'm not really giving too much of an edge either way. But I'll swing that right back at you. What do you see maybe James Butler's side? Is he have potential to, break out for this BC team?
You know what? I love what you ended off there. They're exactly evenly matched in this category.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Giono was huge on Owlette and Stevens combo, and I questioned him for it. I'm just saying I'm looking pretty good in my prediction right now. But nonetheless, if we're looking at Butler, he's got to establish the run game, man. It's a mental battle, O-line versus D-line. And if you lose that early, which the Lions kind of have been, he hasn't put up fantastic numbers, right? Then you're already down in that aspect of the game when you're on a gritty few yard line. Like, Stevens is great, but Butler's got to find a way to just make sure that Rourke doesn't have to throw for like 9 yards per attempt. Because it's so draining, and he's capable of doing that. It's just, man, you got to set him up on at least a 2nd and 6 sometimes.
Exactly.
It's like watching him play. I'll compare them to the Bengals so often. If you look at what's his name? The Canadian guy, Brown.
Chase Brown.
Brown. Literally, it's the same situation. Kind of a nice huskier running back.
That's a really good comparison, I think. Yeah.
They play very similar, and they both got the potential to be great. It's just they kind of just got to win the O-line battle. So I think Butler's going to bounce back for sure. I think the D-line on the Stampeders, which I want to get to in a second, needs a lot of work because, man, their GM/coach Dickenson. I want your opinion on him because he's kind of frustrating me right now.
Man, yeah. I mean, we'll go there first, actually, if you want. Like, the words he came out and said the other day about the Rough Riders, Corey Mace and whatnot, like, that was some bold stuff. He was just kind of going on about, I think it was more so just about, the way he coached the game, was it? Yeah. And, just kind of being frustrated with how they were playing or whatnot. But to me, as a coach, he shouldn't really be doing it. Like, I feel like it lacks a lot of professionalism, a lot of respect for your league, your coaches.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know if that's a guy you can really rally behind. Like, what kind of coaching is he bringing to his team if that's what he's coming out and saying, right?
Exactly.
I don't know if it's more like, narcissistic play, if it's like, hey, we're the best, we can do this, whatnot. I don't know.
He clearly isn't, so he should not be saying this.
Yeah. But I think, Calgary, I don't know too much about Dickinson in his past, so I can't really touch on that too much, but if this is the kind of guy that he's bringing out, he's trying to put onto his team, maybe it could be good, maybe it could be bad. I don't actually really know. I don't know if it's firing up these guys. I don't know if it's like, hey, maybe he's pursuing this belief into, hey, we're much better than the Rough Riders, we can do this. So, I think there's probably a couple ways to look at it, and I don't want to lean too much one way or the other. But as for the actually, what is the BC coach's name again?
I got a quick question for you before it, though. Right?
Yeah, go for it.
But, I forget the BC coach's name. He's a nice guy. Nonetheless, right? Dickenson, which I've never seen before, because, first few years in the CFL and all. I have
Yeah.
never heard of a head coach being a GM. That is the stupidest thing I've heard in my life.
Wait, I didn't even that even
Sorry.
click with me.
What the heck? You can't
Yeah.
have the same guy call both. You need a financial guy who's heartless, and you
Oh
need a
yeah.
guy who connects with the players.
Yeah.
Putting all that pressure on them, if they fall, like actually, no, I'll place this in a second, right? They released, he was a small guy, his first year in the league. I feel bad for the guy, Tremont Morris Brash, right? They released him instantly after the last game. He only played 2 games,
Yeah.
right? And then they immediately sign, this new guy. I forget what his name is. Another D line guy, right? How do you agree with the fact that GMs can be head coaches? Because I think there needs to be two separate guys in that room.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that's the crazy thing. Like even I mean, no matter what you're doing, right? Having a two-man team in making those decisions is going to be way better than one. First
Yeah,
off, again, it's two separate roles, like you said. Like one guy needs to be, connecting with the players, doing whatnot, focusing on the scheme, whereas this guy can then be focusing on the financials, the logistics of the team and whatnot. Like it's two different things, and you can there's no way this guy has enough time on his plate to do everything. Like he's gonna be one burning out, two be overloaded with stress. All right, yeah. So to talk now about Buck Pierce, the BC Lions coach, it's actually interesting because he was the offensive coordinator in Winnipeg from 2020 to 24, and they made the Grey Cup in all of those years, which was very interesting to me. I think they only did win the one season, but that, to be said, is still an amazing feat. He knows how to get to the big stage. He's a proven winner, right? This guy seems like somebody you'd want at your forefront, although there is a difference between head coach and offensive coordinator. I think that's still a great start. And, I don't know the full culture in BC, but this seems like a perfect fit. So I think they're trending in the right direction for the head coach. But with that being said, I think maybe we could talk quickly about the defensive side of things. I know you have certain thoughts about the BC secondary.
yes. Am I still with you? Okay, that's good. BC secondary, honestly, horrendous team right now. Man, on paper they are, I think, an average age of 28 or so, right? Which normally should be pretty good. I'd take that any day of the
Yeah.
week, right? Except there is a huge field of distribution on that, man. There is some quality players at the age of a crisp 35 or 34 years old. I'm talking about TJ Lee, talking about Gary Peters. Both quality players. They're both they're long-serving Lions, they're veterans. They're foundational pieces of this defense, but man, they got outrun. They really, really, really got outrun. And that's going to play a huge part against a healthy wide receiver core any single day of the week, right? If we're talking about TJ Lee, incredible player, he's going to be, I want to say maybe Hall of Fame guy. Yeah, he's an all star, multi time all star. But nonetheless, last season played 5 games. Year before that, played 12 games. There's some injury proneness there. It's showing. There's a lot of experience he brings and a lot of great things you could say about him. But at the end of the day, when you got really young cornerbacks who are still getting used to the new defensive coaching system, as well as older guys who can't keep up, there's a lot of miscommunication happening and a lot of cross wires, which led to. Do you know about the quote made by Chris Streveler?
I don't think I do.
So he called out Buck Pierce in they used to play together, right? He was a long-standing player, and he called basically their defense stupid, quote unquote. Basically, because Saskatchewan at the time they were running like really, really play heavy action looks, right?
Yeah.
And the defensive scheme needed to be really, really organized, especially with the new revamped secondary they've created, which basically led to a bunch of just wide open men. It was I think a week back, or it was this week. No, it was a week back, I think. And so basically, it just led to a bunch of confusion, a lot of open men. And so Streveler was thinking, like, yeah, if the defense needs to be perfect, not to give up deep balls for 30 points a game,
Yeah.
then you're doing something clearly wrong, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's something to be said with both defenses. Like they've both given up 70 plus points in the first 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's great. So I don't know. I think maybe I don't even know if I can give a slight edge one way or another. I think I'd probably say the line. I'd probably lean line is better in Calgary, and maybe,
I think so.
yeah. Actually, I'd probably lean Calgary's defense is a little better in general, to be honest.
Yeah. Right? Like on
But
paper, they have a lot of like elite guys.
yeah,
The group is like forcing turnovers, but like, they're not good against explosive passing
yeah,
plays. And we saw that against Saskatchewan. So,
yeah. I mean, I think we can kind of, get a general idea now. I'm going to pose you this question of, where do you see each of these teams this season? Are you really concerned about this 0-2 start, or do they still have a chance at, making playoff runs?
ooh, out of the two, Rourke is just the type of guy to somehow get there or almost get there.
Yeah.
He's got the star power in him. But honestly, I like Calgary a lot. The only thing that's testing me a little bit is how long the leash will be for the head coach slash GM.
Right.
Because at some point, someone's got to have a talk with them about where your priorities lie and like what we can do to address it. If they go like maybe 1-2-5 or 1-6, then I think they gotta call him back. Say pick head coaching and we'll sign a new GM.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I think then they'll be okay. But hey, if it works out in Calgary, then it works out. But nonetheless, I think I could see BC doing better than Calgary right now. Just because Calgary they extended Vernon, they got time.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll head into. Actually, first I'll state my thoughts there. I think both teams should be all right. I think the 0-2 starts don't directly show how I think they should be. I think they'll both bounce back. Obviously, I think, like you said, I think BC will do a little bit better. But I think Calgary's shown that they can compete with high-level teams. So I think Calgary can, be maybe a shocker come down the playoff stretch. So I'll leave that said. But again, now going into this week's predictions for this game starting off, I think it really, for me, depends on, BC's wide receiver room, what they have there for this week. I think there's still a lot of questions there. I could lean Calgary in this game, but I think being at home, I'll still stick with BC and find a way to win. For you?
I like it. I like the pick. You know what? I'm gonna go back to what you said. At the end of the day, like Nathan Rourke just finds way to win games. Good players tend to find ways to do that. I think they'll end up doing it. I think Calgary are going to regress a little bit. I think they've had a good first two starts, but that's not sustainable. So
Right.
yeah, I got to go. For once, I think we're going to have the same pick. BC at home. So there you go.
All right. All right. All right. I'm sure we're going to find a way to, disagree here. We'll start in Edmonton, Winnipeg. This game's Thursday night in Winnipeg. I think I'm actually going to lean the Red Hot Elks over these Bombers at home. I think this would be another game that's interesting. Just, trying to find seeding in that West. This could be another third place matchup. So I'm going to say Elks, but, I could see Bombers for sure. What do you think there?
Oof, the new Drew Brown Winnipeg Bombers. Let me see. I gotta go with. You know what? I'm sticking with you here. I'm going with the Elks. I think
Okay.
they're red hot. I think they're on fire. Shout out Giono. He's not here, so I figure we'd actually give him a nice little shout there. But
Oh,
yeah, Winnipeg, they got a fun QB room. I'm going to keep a look on that, but no, they're not ready yet. So, Elks.
Okay. All right, now this one's going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to start with you there. Toronto's going to be visiting Saskatchewan. Are you still backing your Argos in this game?
I feel like if you pick a win every game, you're bound to be right 50% of the time with this team, maybe. But oof, man, the Rough Riders, they've looked really good.
Yeah.
Their receiving is really good against kind of a weird secondary we have. We're coming off with a lot of confidence, which is kind of nice.
That is true.
And Kelly looks great, but yeah, I think turnovers are going to be the killer. No, screw it. I'll just go Argos, even though I think Rough Riders are going to win, but I'm going Argos.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. For me, I don't really see that the Argos winning this game, but I think I would be a lot of chaos, and I would like some chaos. So I'll root for the Argos, but I'm going to say Saskatchewan for sure.
There you
And
go.
then moving to the final game of the week, Ottawa is going to be visiting Montreal. For me, this is an easy spot for Montreal. Definitely going to be a bounce back game. So
Yeah.
they need this. Ottawa not looking great. There's not much to for me to give any hope for them to win this game. I'm just going to easily say Montreal. For you?
Um, I like it. I like it. I could see the potential for a trap game a little
Okay.
bit. Love the
Yeah.
term. It's my favorite term in all
Yeah.
football. But no, I think Alouettes, Davis Alexander, he's coming off of being pissed and wet. Like,
Yeah.
man, this kid,
Exactly.
he's gonna be happy. He's gonna be happy to play in a dry condition, and he's gonna dominate. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. I think we relatively agreed there with our picks this week. But moving forward, I think this was a good little breakdown going into that game. Calgary, BC is obviously going to be the game of the week for me. But make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And make sure you come back next week where we are going to be breaking down another team, maybe another two teams, maybe a couple players. Who knows? Remains to be said. But this has been North of the End Zone, Episode 3. I've been your host, Brady Locke, and that's Owen Reid, and we will see you next week.
see you guys.